Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's so nice to see you during the second day of our conference. We will be talking about the inclusive education once again. And once again, we are your hosts for the day, Anna Butrym.
My name is Piotr Otremski. We are delighted to have you back with us as we continue the conference, our discussions on inclusive educations and the innovative strategies and best practices from experts from all over Europe.
So let's start the second day with a little recap of our organizational tips. So please keep your phones on the silent mode. Please remain seated during the sessions and please use again our silent applause for the appreciation for our speakers. We also encourage you to engage in the discussions. We will have Q&A sessions, but not only you can ask your question during the session, you can also submit your questions via Padlet. Here's the link, here's the logo. You can scan and access the Padlet where you can find the section for questions and comments. If you would like to ask a question, just go to the question part for the ask and engage, then click on the green plus button, then type in your question and submit it, and we will gather those questions for the Q&A sessions or further reference.
Yesterday, we embarked on an inspiring journey filled with insightful discussions, best practices, and meaningful exchanges of inclusive education.
And we've covered broad range of topics. So let's hear what we've discussed yesterday. From early support and professional teacher training to cooperation, diverse classrooms, career guidance, and the role of technology inclusive education. Each of those sessions provided us with important lessons and takeaways that will be taken into consideration within the discussions moving forward. But again, we have a sketch note prepared from yesterday's sessions, from all the sessions. So please take a look at this sketch note as it highlights the key themes and insights. And here we have another summary.
Yes, before we move forward, let's take a moment to revisit the highlights of yesterday's sessions. Here's a look at the keywords that shaped the first day of our conference.
But let's get back to the sketch note. We will give everyone time to take a photo because I see it's quite popular. So please do take a photo, and then you can also dive into those subjects also during coffee breaks or within any other networking time we provide for you. And this sketch note will be also displayed on the Padlet, so you can later on revisit the Padlet and again enjoy this sketch note. From today, we also will have a sketch note that we'll present at the end of today. I think we are okay with the photos.
Let's carry on. While yesterday's discussions were rich in ideas and inspiring, they were just the beginning. That's the fact. Today we continue building on those foundations, working towards specific actions and strategies to the future of inclusive education.
And when we are talking about the future, please take into consideration that our Padlet will be available not only today, but also for the future reference. So please visit the Padlet and the conference website. They will be available till the end of this year to get some more information and materials on inclusive education. And there will be also a post-conference publication in the autumn. And now we would like to apologize, but unfortunately we received the message that due to urgent commitments, Minister Barbara Nowacka cannot be with us today.
Yes, but it is our honor to welcome the Secretary of State at the Ministry of National Education, Joanna Mucha, to the stage.
So let's welcome,
yes,
with the silent applause. Please kindly take the stage.
Applause.
Yes.
Minister Mucha will briefly summarize the first day of the conference. Please take the stage.
It's me again, ladies and gentlemen.
And my today's speech will be even longer than those yesterday. Just kidding. And I've got two microphones, as you can see. I will start with a very warm hello from Madam Minister Barbara Nowacka. She is really very. She wanted to be with us today, but you know, it's not we who manage our time. So, very warm hello. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and esteemed colleagues. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the second day of the conference, Let's Make Inclusion Happen. I hope yesterday's plenary session and workshops was a real fruitful thoughts for all of us, and the evening concert with the excellent music performed by our young artists gave you a lot of positive energy and joy. The 9 thematic sessions showcased successful strategies and latest research on inclusive education implementation around Europe. I would like to thank all the panelists, moderators, reporters, and participants for sharing their knowledge and experiences during engaging, inspiring discussions. Today, we would like to talk about inclusive education in the context of mental health and social and emotional well-being as a necessary condition for school success. Before the plenary session, I would like to give the floor to the learners themselves. If we are truly committed to inclusion, learners' voices must be heard and in all matters affecting them, both in policy making, discussions, and everyday educational experience. Let's see a video message, a synopsis of the opinions, postulates, and general thoughts on education.
Dear Minister Jan Namuko, for your insightful remarks. We, of course, have a video for you, and now we would like to invite you to watch a 3-minute UNICEF film, We Make Inclusion Happen.
In a world that is evolving faster than ever, it is young people who hold the key to shaping the future. Their ambitions, ideas, and challenges they face are redefining the way in which we think about tomorrow.
My name is Stanisława Szpankowa.
Nazywam się Janek Gawroński.
Hello, my name is Emilia.
Mam na imię Noemi.
Cześć, jestem Ola.
Hi, my name is Martina. Nazywam się Zoriana Kornak.
Moje imię jest Bartosz.
I remember that I wasn't that appreciated. The teachers weren't that patient with me.
Osoby w spektrum autyzmu, ADHD, ADD, FAS z zespołem Tourette'a są narażone na wykluczenie i dyskryminację.
I decided to give the speech because I want some things to change. I want to point out things that do not work, and I know what I'm talking about because I experienced it myself.
Społeczność romska jest otwarta na to, aby wprowadzić pozytywne zmiany i też są gotowi na rozwój i edukację dla swoich dzieci.
No one can say more about the situation of particular group of people than those who are part of it.
Udział młodych osób w takich rozmowach czy konferencjach jak ta jest niesamowicie ważny, bo kto lepiej powie o naszych potrzebach jak nie my.
Przez moją opowieść ludzie mogą zrozumieć, że osoby niepełnosprawne to takie same jak pełnosprawni ludzie, tylko właśnie na tym polega, żeby im trochę pomóc.
I believe that the voice
of young people can really help if we can listen to each other. We can make the world a better place.
As UNICEF, we believe that youth can shape the world. Let's listen and empower them to act, because the future begins with them.
Thank you very much for this moving summary of the most important aspects that was provided by the young people. And having this in mind, we can now move to the further topics. It's our pleasure of welcoming Regina De Dominicis, the Regional Director for Europe and Central Asia at UNICEF, who will share her perspective on inclusive education policies and their implementation across Europe.
Regina De Dominicis is known as a strong advocate for children's rights and equitable access to education. Please again welcome her to the stage.
Thank you, Excellency, esteemed colleague from the Polish Ministry of Education, distinguished representative of the European Commission, dear partners, educators, academia, and young people. It is really a pleasure to be today on behalf of UNICEF. I thank so much our host for convening this important conference under the Poland's EU presidency. As part of the EU presidency, Poland has prioritized security, economic competitiveness, and resilience, but also has recognized into this framework that Europe's greater strength lies in its people, and the strength of its people depends on the quality of their education. To thrive in a rapidly changing world, children and young people need more than academic knowledge. They need resilience, they need adaptability, and strong mental health, not just for their own well-being, but for the future stability and the prosperity of Europe. UNICEF believes that investing in children and young people is investing in Europe's present and future. That's why we strongly support the Union of Skills Agenda and European education area with a strong focus on inclusive education. Today, I want to focus on two key urgent priorities. The first is ensuring that every child has access to quality inclusive education, and you have spoken about it yesterday quite of a length. And the second is the strengthening of mental health support for children and young people, the focus of today. UNICEF works across EU member states, but also EU accession countries to ensure that all children, regardless of their background, of their ability or circumstances, can access a quality education and develop the skills they need. Of course, we simply contribute to what our Ministry of Education, our key partners, deliver for them, together with teachers and together with their community, but also with students themselves, as we do value enormously the right of participation for them to shape the policy that concern their life the most. This means making mainstreaming schools fully inclusive for children with disability, rather than placing them in segregated settings, ensuring children and young people fleeing conflict or poverty can continue their education in host communities and schools, but also means equipping teachers with the skills to support the diversity in learning. One of the most effective ways to accelerate inclusive education is the investment in teachers. Here in Poland, for example, UNICEF has partnered with the Ministry of Education to strengthen the capacity of 2,200 specialized teachers and 11,000 teachers, and also benefiting 30,000 students who required additional support on learning. Another example is our Pathways initiative, which helps Ukrainian children in Ukraine, in Poland, in Czech Republic, and in Slovakia to continue their education, to develop skills, and transition into meaningful employment. This initiative demonstrates how governments, civil society, the private sector, and international organizations can work together to meet the needs of children and young people. It is important to build a powerful ecosystem to support inclusion and diversity. However, quality education alone is not enough. Children and young people cannot learn, thrive, or prepare for their future if they are struggling with mental health challenges. Across Europe and as well Central Asia, young people face an unprecedented stressor. The long-term impact of the COVID pandemic, including lost learning and social isolation, the trauma of the Ukrainian war, too close to many, which has affected nearly 6 million children in Ukraine, as well as the economic uncertainty that we are facing across our continent, climate change, rising polarization, are all fueling some anxiety amongst young people about their future. The consequences are really severe, and the data speak for themselves. Over 13% of adolescents in Europe live with a diagnosed mental disorder, with anxiety and depression accounting for 40% of cases. In Eastern Europe and Central Asia, suicide is now the leading cause of death amongst adolescents aged 15 to 19. Mental health condition can also take an important economic toll, costing the economies of Europe, again in Central Asia, as we see as UNICEF as a close region that is looking at Europe on the development of their social sector, a cost of $80 billion annually. So it's very, very important to invest on prevention. The good news is that we know what works. Schools are one of the most effective places to support children's well-being. Those are places where young people spend most of their time and where we can help them develop the resilience as well as social-emotional skills. They are key to prevent mental health challenges. And where early signs of difficulty appears, schools can play a vital role in identifying concern and providing support in a familiar, safe, and caring environment. UNICEF advocates for an holistic approach to mental health in school, prioritizing evidence-based intervention that have a lasting impact on the well-being of children. This includes embedding social and emotional learning into curricula so that students learn to manage stress and build resilience, creating safe and inclusive school environment where every child feels valued, but also where strengthening partnership with families and communities is possible. This promotes mental health awareness and ensure also that teacher and school staff have the capacity to recognize and respond to these mental health challenges. Equally important is to prioritize teachers' well-being because a stressed and overworked teaching workforce cannot provide the support that students need. We are already seeing tangible progress in the European Union space. In Bulgaria, the Steps Together to Stop Violence program, for instance, is strengthening schools' environment and has been recognized as one of the EU best practice. In Poland, our Learning Passport initiative has provided professional development to 9,500 educators, benefiting 200,000 learners, many of whom are Ukrainian refugees. In Romania, a nationwide mental health and well-being initiative launched with the support from the European Commission is strengthening school-based mental health support. And in Ukraine, UNICEF has provided mental health support together with the ministry to nearly 35,000 children in 2024 only. The initiative, I Support My Friends, has trained more than 5,000 vocational school students in peer support. And this has been mentioned also throughout the video by some of the young speakers, the importance of peer support that has allowed in this specific case to reach 63,000 adolescents across Ukraine. To accelerate efforts across the region, UNICEF is establishing a regional hub for mental health and well-being, and is providing technical assistance in many of the EU member states, sharing best practices, generating data and evidence, and mobilizing resources to drive systemic change. But success depends on strong leadership and coordinated action at the European level. That's why I really would like to thank and praise the leadership of the Polish government in this respect. The EU has already made important strides in advancing inclusive education, skills development, and mental health across the continent. Now, continued commitment is needed to scale up these efforts and ensure that every child and young person can benefit of it. As part of the presidency of the Council of the European Union, UNICEF continues to count on the leadership of the government of Poland and the upcoming presidency to keep inclusive education, skills development, and mental health high on the EU agenda, with increased investment in these areas. We also count on the presidencies to accelerate cross-country cooperation, and this is a great example, especially on inclusive education and mental health, what the children and young people ask us the most. But also it's important to create linkages between the EU member states and EU accession countries, which now are many and growing in number. And it's important to leverage initiatives such as the European Child Guarantee and the Youth Guarantee, as well as EU internal funding and funding system streams to foster better and stronger inclusion. But also, I would like to end, so that this remains with all of you, of the importance to ensure that children's voices, especially the one of children with educational needs, are heard at the highest level of decision making. And this conference in these 2 days has been an example of it. I'm glad that the young people perspective will be represented throughout this process, and let's keep these good practices for the months and years to come. They inside remind us how and why this work is important. By investing in inclusive education and mental health, we can build a Europe that is certainly fair, more resilient, and competitive. One that gives every child the opportunity to learn, to thrive, but also shape actively their future. Thank you. Dziękuję.
Thank you very much for your valuable insights. With all those in mind, we can move on to our panel discussions when our distinguished experts will be sharing their experiences on promoting inclusivity in education.
As you can see, there's something going on the stage. It is our pleasure to invite our esteemed panelists to the stage. Joanna Filican from the European Commission, please welcome. With warm but silent, welcome. Professor Baiba Martinzone from the University of Latvia, and yes, warm and silent, welcome. And Dr. Noémie Ledon representing OECD.
Ladies, welcome. Please take a seat as we are starting the panel discussion, but of course we'll begin with one of the speakers to share their to share all their expertise and share all their experiences on the given subject. And we will start with Ms. Joanna Filican, the policy officer in charge of equity and well-being at school from the European Commission, who will share her expertise on inclusive educational strategies and their practical implementation. She will share with us her work on comprehensive guide, which supports implementation of the Pathways to School Success initiative. And this initiative aims to reduce educational underachievement and promote inclusion across the European education area. So the stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction and for welcoming us here. Yes, my name is Wana Felecan. I work at the European Commission, the Director General for Education, Youth, Sports and Culture. And for the last 5 years, I had the honor and really to work on this passionate topic, which is inclusion, well-being at school. And today I will be presenting you a tool we have been developing together with member states. So this is really a joint effort. And many thanks to colleagues and participants of the working group schools, which are present in this room or are watching us online. So it's a practical tool entitled Roadmap for Ensuring School Success for All, which in fact bridges very well what was already addressed yesterday in the conference, but also with the topic today, which is well-being and mental health. But before I enter into the description of this guide, that it is designed for you, policymaker, to help you with the reflection and implementation of all the key concepts we have been approaching today. Yesterday and today. Let me give you just a brief overview of the European policies on education and how this document came into being. Okay. So first, the European policy context. We are living in an evolving context with many challenges. I will not name them again, but we have heard so much about them. And skills, and especially basic skills, are important to maintain the European Union competitive and to respond quickly to these fast emerging challenges. That is why on the 5th of March, the European Commission put forward a communication entitled Union of Skills, which is a package which focus on skill developments and closing the skill gaps in the Union. And of course, this cannot be achieved without looking at the foundation of these skills and without looking at schools and without looking at equity, inclusion, and well-being. Part of this initiative, which is, as I said, it's a communication. It means that it details action for the Commission to take forward in the next year. The package includes an action plan on basic skills, a STEM education strategic plan, and upcoming in 2026, an EU teachers and trainer agenda. It will be complemented also by a school alliances process. Why are these needed? Again, these are topics that you well know, the decreasing trends in basic skills in PISA, the latest one in 2022, but not the previous years, also 2018, increased mental health concerns, but also these trends are deteriorating also for the top performance, not only basic skills. And all this work that will take place from today in the next years, in fact, it does not come out of nothing, but it comes on an important piece of work we have been doing together since 2022, and it's the Pathways to School Success initiative, which takes the form of a council recommendation adopted by the member states in 2022 following a proposal from the Commission. And this is an important piece of legislation because it's for the first time at the European level that we have been looking at inclusion, equity, really in an integrated manner. The Council recommendation on pathways to school success repeals the previous Council recommendation on early school leaving. And so as you hear the title, before we were really looking at early school leaving from the perspective of learners at risk, but more from an aspect of intervention. While now with the pathways, it's not only important to look at these students of risk, but really to look at the whole community and to work in terms of engagement, achievement, and well-being at school. Of course, this came also in the context of the COVID pandemics and the hit it had on the mental health and well-being of children, but not only. It also came in light of deteriorating trends in school engagement, positive school climate, and so on. And the Council recommendation puts strong emphasis on prevention. Prevention by looking at universal measures, so which are addressed to all school children and their teachers, by promoting their strengths. And then, very important is to work with targeted and selected support measure in small groups or more individualized. And central to pathways to school success, it is the whole school approach and the whole system approach, which looks at the learner at the center with different types of prevention, intervention, and even compensation measure. But again, here the aspect of community with the local involvement, but also at the system level with harmonization among different policy sectors, education, but also health, migration, welfare, and so on, are very important. So this is the framework that was put forward in 2022, adopted by the Council. If you want to look, it's really the annex of the Council recommendation with details the framework. And since then, in the remit of our working mechanism with the member states in the framework of the European education area, we have been working to implement or to put in practice this recommendation with the help of peer learning activities organized in member states. We had several in Croatia, in Portugal, in Malta, last year in France on specific on social emotional education, this year in Ireland. Sorry. And up to this, the idea is to provide guiding materials for policymakers. We also have, but I will not enter into the presentation today, professional development and opportunity for staff. This is done in the remit of European School Education Platform, which I'm sure many of you have heard about. But also, since the topic of well-being was relatively new for us, we were also, before Pathways, looking at well-being mainly through the lens of anti-bullying policies, of disruptive disruptive behavior. With the Pathways, we took a really comprehensive approach, looking also at learners, environments, and teachers. But the Commission asked the opinion of an expert group to come up with guidance, both for policymakers and schools, how to really implement and look at well-being and mental health. And about this expert group, which its work ended, in fact, last year, you will hear from my colleague, Professor Baiba Martisone, who was part of this expert group. Now, as I told you, all these documents come in the remit of strong cooperation with member states. Last year, when we were in Malta, we were discussing a lot the role of targeted support measures as a key for inclusion. And the working group came with this idea to develop a roadmap for policymakers for ensuring school success for all. This is really a practical living document. What I'm presenting you today, it is a first stage. And the idea is that the conference today, the work done by the Polish Presidency, but also if you have feedback, we would welcome to further complement this roadmap. On our side, we aim to also complementing it by focusing more on well-being and parental involvement, which we are doing right now. And how it is presented, it's really like a toolkit for policymakers, describing the issue, putting in place some key questions to address, and also combining it with promising practices. The idea is to really how to help you operationalize all the key elements that are important for inclusion. And I will come back to it. It is grounded in research and practical examples. Researchers from PPMI in Lithuania and University of Lisbon helped us develop. So it's really, really a joint work, and I thank a lot everyone who was involved in its design. Now, its content. What are we looking at? So the roadmap for ensuring school success for all, it's built around 6 pillars. The first one, it's about ensuring a whole system, whole school approach to education policy planning. And this pillar, it is a precondition for the others to happen. So here we are speaking, when we look at whole school approaches, this is a term we have been using for years, but still on the ground, it takes some time to happen. And it's a complex concept, let's say, because at the same, on one side, one need to look at the school processes and organization inside the school and make sure that collaboration and engagement happen at all levels between the whole school staff, between the learners and the parents. But at the external level, it's also at the same importance to look at policies, practices at different levels, the relation between the school, municipalities, policymakers and regional, national level. But at the same time, policy making in other fields, be it migration, health, welfare, social affairs, and so on. It is based on the understanding that isolated interventions are insufficient to develop strategies that work. Yes, what I mentioned, in fact, we can sum it up in a word school leaders often use. It takes a village to raise a child. So whole system, whole school approach is a precondition for the other thing to happen. Now, needs identification. Again, we have heard so much about this yesterday. Identification of needs, we need to ensure a delicate balance between the necessity to understand specific needs, but to avoid the risk of labeling and oversimplification. We need also to look at these needs in a more broader range, not only at special education needs, but also language learning needs, socio-emotional needs, and we've also noticed that these needs are interconnected. For instance, when we look at mental health, we know that learners from disadvantaged background, from special education, suffering from disability or from a low socioeconomic background are more at risk of experiencing mental health concerns. So how do we address this? So it needs to be at the same time a uniform way to assess and understand these needs, but also an adaptable and flexible approaches. And of course here we insist again, participation of learners, families are very important, but also school processes and practices, multidisciplinary team involved to help teachers with identifying and observing these needs, but also practices such as formative assessment. By the fact of involving and by its nature, formative assessment is very, very useful. Then I pass to the third pillar, which is capacity building. Again, something we have been discussing quite a lot yesterday. Capacity building of staff, of professional staff. Again, here we are not looking only at teachers, but really at the whole school staff, starting with the school leadership, the vision, but also the support staff with the necessary knowledge, skills to help the community. Here, aspects which are still to work on in many countries, we notice an insufficient diversity in the teaching profession, but also in terms of gaps existing between initial teacher education, how they prepare future teachers for inclusion, what competencies are built in this respect, and how to put into practice. But also this mindset of continuous professional development that should be part of the whole life journey. Of course, network of teacher support. Again, yesterday we talked a lot about professional learning communities, mentorship, and very important, the vision of the school leadership. And for examples, training for school leadership, distributed school leadership models, and so on. So all this you can find in the guidelines. Pillar 4, it's about the resource allocation, a very important one. Here with the idea, again, of the community, but here more working in terms of different sector. It is closely linked to needs assessment. What we also, so the idea is we need to have sufficient, adequate, and continuous support for the implementation of policy measures. But we need also to look at resources, not only in terms of financial, in terms of human, but also in terms of organizational resources to see who are the right experts to help a particular school. And here, for example, municipalities have a great role to play. We need to ensure they are flexible and responsive. And we also need to balance, carefully balance between rural and urban areas. And in many cases, we also see that flexibility of the resources can address issues, but without necessarily having additional financial ones. So it's just a matter of organization. And you can see you can find some examples in this. Apologize, I went too fast in the roadmap. So a fifth pillar, it's curriculum and pedagogies. That curriculum that integrates diverse content, material, assessment methods. Again, I'm coming back to assessment for learning, very important. But this idea of adapting teaching approaches, use more personalized and flexible teaching methods to help to overcome barriers. Feedback and ongoing adjustments are really key to this. And the last pillar, it's about data and monitoring. Again, quite thoroughly discussed yesterday. Crucial to evaluate the effectiveness of policies, efficiency of resource allocation, but we need relevant indicators, both quantitative and qualitative, and they should be longitudinal. And data and monitoring should provide input on the needs of the student, the resources invested into it, the specific resources used, and also the outcomes, the outputs, and the impact in the short term and in the long term. And with this, I hope I have given you an overview and an interest to discover this roadmap. As I said, we are welcoming also your feedback. We aim to also use this roadmap within some actions in action plan on basic skills. One of the initiatives put forward basic skills support scheme, and a series of guidelines are expected this year. So this roadmap, in fact, the final version will feed into it. And before I give the floor to my colleague, I would like also to highlight, because we always have a link between policy and practices and strong links with Erasmus+. So last year, in the framework of Erasmus+ Innovative Teaching Award, we put forward the annual theme as being well-being and mental health at school. And this award acknowledges the work of teachers in primary, secondary, early childhood education, and primary, secondary, and vocational education. And I would like just to take you to some very inspiring Polish examples. You can see in the links when you will go on the Padlet. It will take you to some videos of these schools. So really, really very inspiring. And the year before, the annual theme was innovation in education. Again, with very, very interesting Polish project that were co-funded by Erasmus+. And this year theme is citizenship. So stay tuned for November when it will take place.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Pelikan. Now let's turn to Ms. Baiba Marginsona, lecturer at the University of Latvia and the European Commission Working Group expert, who will provide valuable insights into psychological approaches that support inclusive learning environments and enhance the development of socio-emotional well-being of all.
And just for the comfort of our speakers, we will tell you that you need to keep the microphone quite high up for it to take your voice and stream it properly. If you would wish, you can also present here from the stand using those microphones. It's up to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for this recommendation, because it is absolute necessity to stand and not to sit during my speech. And their colleagues, it is a pleasure and honor for me to present these new guidelines for policymakers and schools, how to promote well-being at schools. And I would like to speak from my heart and also start from the very beginning. We know that we have problems manifesting in educational settings. For example, learning disabilities. We can detect them just upon child starts to learn. It means that learning disabilities will manifest in school, but we also have many problems caused by school, caused by educational system. This competitive atmosphere, insufficient support to positive school climate, school ratings, pushing on academic grades, summative assessment, burnout in both teachers and also students. And what we are doing, typically schools are asking for tips, for recommendations, for interventions, what to do. And typically they want to receive this symptomatic approach. Like in medicine, if you have such symptom, you need such intervention, appropriate intervention. And we know that it is not sustainable. We need to start from prevention rather than sporadic activities of fragmented activities of intervention. Of course, we want to prevent school dropout, but we also understand that just keeping children at school, it's not enough. We need to provide environment and opportunity to flourish for their personal development, not just academic success. Of course, we don't ignore academic success, but also this development of holistic, well-developed personality. And Oano spoke about this council recommendation on pathways to school success. This is first document Commission was provided with big emphasis on well-being at schools. But as you know, the expert group for well-being at schools was organized, and we were 19 representatives from different European countries, and this group was led by Oana Felekan and her colleagues. And what was our mandate? Our mandate was to develop recommendations how exactly implement mental health and well-being at schools. The second was improve self-assessment and self-improvement tool for self-observation and strategic planning at schools, and also recommendations for awareness-raising activities. And today I will show you how look recommendations, this short version of recommendations, but very soon, already this spring, long version of recommendations and all tool and everything will be presented officially and also translated in all national languages. We used two conceptual frameworks to develop our recommendations. And first framework was whole school approach to mental health and well-being. And you see that it consists of 10 domains, and recommendations cover all these 10 domains. Classroom and school climate, school ethos, professional development of teachers, strong partnerships with stakeholders, extracurricular activities, and etc. And another framework is a three-tier system of support with a special emphasis that we put on universal interventions or preventive work, that we target every child, and we are working toward a more positive school environment in general, not those fragmented activities. And two materials are available already online, two handbooks, one well-being and mental health at school for policymakers, and another well-being and mental health at schools for school leaders, teachers, and educators. And we developed 11 recommendations. It was also our aim not to write big papers no one reads, but provide recommendations and also specific with behavioral aspect, not just boost, improve, promote, but what exactly to do. And I will show also example of one of recommendations. You see that first two are devoted to establishing positive school climate, considering also active participation of learners and provision of social emotional learning from preschool to the end of the school years, as well as teachers' pre-service and in-service teachers' education on well-being. Especially, it's necessary that teachers are informed and capable to promote well-being. They have knowledge and skills. They have their competence to work toward well-being at school. And okay, we can look at these recommendations maybe a bit detailed. They are, if we look through this lens of three-tier systems, that first 5 recommendations are completely universal. Positive school climate, active participation and empowerment of learners, integration of social emotional education, collaborative partnerships, integration of well-being in pre-service teacher education, and what is very important, strengthening leaders, school leaders' capacity to address well-being and to serve as initiators of the process, not just saying, "Okay, girls, it's good, you can do it," but also that leaders are very active and well-informed participants. And then the next 5 recommendations are both universal, but also bit targeted this second level. Universal level is for everybody, whole school approach this, but targeted support, it means that we have also smaller groups of students who need some additional support, and they are provided with this support. And this individualized level will be really individual, specifically oriented on needs of specific child, not just like prescription. If you have this problem, you need to do that, but considering every specific child's needs. And these next are safe schools to prevent any form of violence, including digital well-being, fundamental rights by safeguarding core enablers. And we are addressing not just directly social emotional skills or mental health, but also through those core enablers. For example, it's nutrition. Can you imagine? I'm sure you can imagine. At least in Latvia, I am from Latvia, it is quite typical that we have 30 minutes lunch break. And students are standing in a queue, in a line, and waiting for their meal. And those who are at the very end, they probably receive their meal 4 minutes before the next lesson, and they eat in hurry and run to their next lesson. And it is also about well-being, and also physical well-being is strongly associated to mental health. And of course, priority of equity, inclusion, and diversity. And the last recommendation is more targeted, and it is guarantee access to support services for learners with mental health problems. And we know that in this situation, schools cannot deal with such problems alone. It is absolutely necessary to involve helpers, support systems outside of school. And for your information, how the recommendation looks like, and you see it is very, very user-friendly. It is a first recommendation. You see, establish a positive school climate rooted in active participation and empowerment of learners. You can see that it is general, this universal level. This pyramid, you can see wheel of whole school approach of mental health, and which domains are specifically targeted. And you see pupils' voices and positive school climate. Recommendation starts with very brief definition what school climate is. Afterwards, very, very short substantiation of what is the impact of positive school climate, that positive school climate is related to better mental health, to better academic achievement, and also better behavioral adjustment. And then you see action points, those behavioral points, what exactly to do. For example, include, I cannot read, but I will speak from my heart, include promoting well-being in your school supporting documents, in vision, mission, in action plans, inform stakeholders that you will do that, and also what is written in your web page, school's web page, and different action points. And then we move to indicators of success, and it is like checklist, not just do this and that, but check yourself. And how can I know that I am doing well with this recommendation? And first is positive school climate is reflected in school vision, mission, and documents. Okay, check. It is. School administration actively participates. Okay, check. Allocation of sufficient time. Oh. And we can start to think, what are we doing during our pedagogical meetings? maybe we are speaking just about behavioral problems, about academic success. Maybe we are speaking about absenteeism, but do we plan and devote time and space to speak about social emotional learning, about student needs? And this is like idea that I can understand what to change at my school. And of course, what children say, and different inspiring practices and good tips and further resources. This is one example of recommendation. And the last one, if you would like to read a bit more about creating a positive school climate, and not just creating, but also sustaining these practices, to maintain this year by year and implement in everyday teaching routines, well-being strategies, you can easily find in this European school education platform. Look for this. The school climate has not been affected by global warming. This is like a bit a joke, but the idea behind this, you can find this article, Conceptual Framework of Positive School Climate. And the idea is that unlike climate changes, school climate doesn't become warmer without our common efforts. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Ms. Martinsson, for your speech, for your recommendations.
And finally, we will hear from our third speaker. This is Noemi Ledon, the Senior Project Manager from the Center for Educational Research and Innovation, representing OECD. She will discuss the role of educators in fostering exclusive education in schools, and talk about mental health and well-being as foundation of school success. So let's listen.
The floor is yours, but just we have to wait for working microphone.
I think you just maybe switch it off.
Yeah, okay. Hello, everyone. I hope you can exert a little bit of self-control, perseverance, and curiosity to keep up. I'm the last speaker of this session. I know it's hard to keep focused until the end, but thank you for your attention. Thank you to the organizers for their invitation. It's a great pleasure to be with you. Thank you to all of you again for being here and listening to this presentation. I'm Noémie Ledonné. I work for the OECD. I've been working for the OECD for 10 years, and since 2021, I lead the work on social emotional skills. And there are obvious links with mental health and well-being, so this is why you can see this presentation as part of this session. So the flagship project of my unit on social emotional skills is the survey on social emotional skills. I hope you like charts, because you will see a lot of them in my presentation. It will be a change from diagrams that we've seen before, but I have one still to show to you. This is the framework we use at the OECD to conceptualize and list all the skills we measure as part of the survey on social emotional skills. We have organized the skills into 5 big domains. You can see, let's start with the blue one, engaging with others. That's the capacity to initiate new relationships, to interrupt a conversation, to present yourself the first time you meet someone. Then the green domain, collaboration, the capacity to maintain quality relationships once they are established, with skills such as empathy, trust. In the next framework, we'll have also cooperation. And then we have emotional skills in the domain of emotional regulation, in yellow, with skills such as emotional control, stress resistance. We also have another domain which also relates somehow to management of emotions, but looking at the capacity to stay focused on task. So this is task performance, with skills such as persistence, achievement motivation, responsibility, self-control. And then finally, we have another domain. It's not really social and emotional in nature, maybe a little bit emotional, mainly mostly cognitive, I would say, but it's part of our framework, which actually also measure life skills. There are plenty of different terms, non-cognitive skills, and so on. And this domain is open-mindedness, so the capacity to be open to others' ideas, to be able to build on those ideas, refine them, and so you have skills such as curiosity, creativity, and tolerance. So the survey assesses those skills in both 10 and 15-year-olds. And we also collect information from teachers, principals, students themselves, and also optionally their parents. We have conducted 2 rounds of this survey, the first one in 2019 and the second one in 2023. We have collected data from 23 education systems. Some of them come from the same country. This is why we have only 20 countries. I'm very happy to say that Poland will join the next data collection in 2026, and I thank you for their trust in the project and the utility of the data. And coverage is also expanding in Europe with Luxembourg joining, and also Vilnius in Lithuania. So it's great news for us. But as you can see, we have a nice global coverage. So before I turn to how we can develop social-emotional skills in the students, I will share a few facts. First, on why those skills are important based on the data we have. These skills are important because they predict mental health, well-being, but also academic outcomes. So let's start with academic success. Investing in social-emotional learning indeed boosts academic success. Here you can see the relationships between each of the skills we measure and students' grades in math. Those are the blue bars. And you can see at the left-hand side of the charts that skills that matter particularly for mathematics performance are achievement motivation, persistence, responsibility, self-control, all the skills in the task domain, task performance domain, but also curiosity. So it matters if that someone can get things done, of course, but it also matters that someone is curious about new things, loves learning new things, and so on. The same relationships are observed for reading. This is pretty stable across subjects, and also for arts. So let me zoom now on these 5 skills that are on the left-hand side. You can see that the relationships we see for these 5 skills, they hold for both 15 and 10-year-olds. So we have these positive relationships between these skills and student achievements for both age cohorts, but also for advantaged and disadvantaged students from a socioeconomic and cultural perspective. And they also are pretty stable across genders. So it means that investing in SEL boosts academic success for all student groups. And these relationships are also very universal across all participating sites. So in Europe, from Spain to Bulgaria, from the west to the east, but also from Gunma in Japan to Houston in the US. A few words about the relationships between those skills and students' well-being and health. We measured as part of the survey also students' healthy behaviors, or the extent to which they are healthy. We also measured psychological well-being over the past 2 weeks, and test and class anxiety. And you can see that students who have greater skills in the domain of emotional regulation, optimism, stress resistance, emotional control, they also are happier and healthier. Oh, some pictures of students in the middle of my charts. Just to pause a little bit on health, many students need support for developing healthier behaviors. As I said, as part of the survey, we collected information on this. And what we found is that, so be careful, this is negatively phrased. We are looking at the share of students who don't eat fruit or vegetables most days. And you can see that the average across all sites was around 35%. And in Europe, for the European participating sites, the range was between Helsinki, the lowest share with 27%, to Bulgaria with 37%. So it's a considerable share of students who don't eat properly, who don't exercise enough, so once a week or less, and who don't get enough sleep. This was very striking for our colleagues in Japan. They were like, okay, 80% of our students don't get 8 hours of sleep per night. We need to address that. And in Italy, it was also very high with 70%. So we still need to support students, and developing social emotional skills, emotional regulation skills will help them have better, healthier lives. Of course, there are also aspects which are out of their control. A few words also to say that social emotional skills, yes, they matter, but they are inequitably distributed. So what was very striking from the survey was to see that disadvantaged students always report lower levels of each of the skills we measure. And the gaps are particularly large at the expense of disadvantaged students for the skills on the left-hand side, so creativity, tolerance, assertiveness, curiosity, sociability. You need resources to develop those skills probably, and so that's why we have this larger gaps. We also found important gender differences. Girls and boys evaluated their skills differently. Boys reported lower levels of tolerance, achievement motivation, empathy, and responsibility. And girls reported lower levels of skills in the emotional regulation domain and also sociability. Of note, because we are in Europe, I just wanted to highlight that these gender gaps, they are larger in Europe than in other countries. So for Finland, so Helsinki and Italy, that was also striking news somehow, and that went to complement the information we have from PISA, also about large gender gaps in academic achievements. Another striking finding is that gender differences grow wider between the age of 10 and 15. So here you can see the gap at the age of 10 for some of the skills. You can see they are relatively small at the expense of girls, except for stress resistance. At the age of 10 already, girls think that they are less stress resistant. And then they go wider at the age of 15. And we don't see this widening for the gaps at the advantage of boys. So it's really like girls that like sort of drop out. So what can we do to develop social and emotional skills in students? So there are easy tips according to the data we have. I just want to express a note of caution though. We are measuring correlations, not causation. So we need to be a little careful. But what we found is that students who say their teacher give them feedback frequently, they also report higher levels of all skills. And especially those that I highlight, because this is the stable pattern across all sites. So students that receive a lot of feedback, they tend to be more creative, to be more achievement focused, more sociable, and they also trust people more often. So we were thinking, so what is it about teacher feedback? And also, how often do students receive teacher feedback in the classroom and outside the classroom hours? Teacher feedback focuses more on areas of improvement. So this is actually the feedback on strengths. Students receive feedback on strengths first. Nearly 30% of students receive feedback on their strengths regularly. And nearly 40% of students receive feedback on areas where they can improve. And then the highest percentage is for sharing feedback about how to improve performance. And I want to pause here because as you can see, not many students receive this feedback so frequently, like it's less than half of the students. And I want to stress the importance of giving feedback on strengths. Because what we found is that the relationships between social emotional skills and this are bigger than for the other type of feedback. I think we need to pause on this because it's important for a student to know what they are good at, because it's very informative. It can shape their career aspirations. It builds self-confidence. But it also provides like a nice environment for the students, because they will develop a trust relationship with the teacher. So I think there is something about the content, but also the form that creates like a virtuous circle. It's something relatively easy to implement. This is not something that requires a reform. Now teachers will give feedback. It's something easy that teachers can implement in their classroom. A positive school culture also and a strong sense of belonging are also related to higher social emotional skills. Again, something to think of in schools. And we also have interesting data about bullying and the importance of developing empathy, as you will see on these slides. We looked at the skills of students involved differently in bullying. Most of the students are both victims and perpetrators. And what we found is that compared to the students who are not involved in bullying, they all have lower skills. But when we looked at victims only, they have higher levels of empathy. And perpetrators and those who are victims and perpetrators usually have very similar profiles. So what distinguishes victims from the rest is the level of empathy. So and perpetrators have lower levels of empathy. So by developing empathy, we may be able to prevent bullying from happening. Other tips: students' participation in extracurricular activities can also boost social emotional skills. A slide to just show that all the skills we measure are typically addressed in the official documentation, like curriculum, for instance, of the education systems we operated with, but they are not well represented in teacher training. So we have around 10% of teachers who said we are lacking trainings in classroom practice. So not a high percentage, but we have around 30% of teachers who say, I haven't been trained to incorporate social and emotional learning in the classroom across all sites. And this is my last slide with data. It's also very important to ensure that there is a shared mindset within schools, that everybody in the school agrees that social emotional learning, well-being is important. We ask the questions to teachers and school leaders whether they agree that social emotional skills can impact employment and economic success. And less than half of the students are on a school where everybody agrees that this is important. And you can see that for some of the countries, the percentage is even lower. So we are starting the next round of the survey. We are reshaping a bit the framework, including a direct assessment of empathy for the first time. And we're including new themes. The main survey will take place in 2026. Poland will be part of that. If you're interested in chatting with me about this, if you are interested in bringing the survey to your country, feel free to reach me at the coffee break. I would like to thank all the participants in the survey, the students, the school staff, the parents, and also all the partners for this. You can find more information in our reports. You have the QR codes here if you are interested. And thank you.
The last slide. If we can go back to the last slide of Noémie Ledonnet to allow the screening of the QR codes. With this presentation, we've concluded the presentations part, but it's not the end of the panel.
Yes, of course. I think we can keep this slide on the screen for a while. Thank you very much. I would love to notice how informative and insightful all the presentations were. So thank you very much. Now we open the floor for questions. We remind you that you can submit your questions through Padlet anytime, so feel free. Feel free to share your thoughts, your questions, give us feedback. We encourage you to engage in the discussion virtually.
So if you are asking the questions via tablet, we have two specialists ready to read out your questions aloud. So I will give the floor over to Anna Atwas, Director of the Bureau for School and Adult Education Programs at the Polish National Agency for Erasmus Plus and the European Solidarity Corps, and Magdalena Olejniczak-Mackay, an expert at the Ministry of Education. So this is moment for the questions from tablets, but of course we will have the room open for your questions asked directly to the microphone. So let's start with the tablet.
Thank you very much. So using the time for your questions from the audience, we would like to report that we received until now about 12 questions via Padlet, and we selected it and combined it in 3 groups. So first group is about a mindset, inclusion as a mindset. So, first question, if inclusion is perceived as a mindset, do you have any tips or advice on strategies which would help to change the way of thinking or the ethos of educational establishments? The first and the second one from this group, how can we modify our personal approach to become more inclusive and to initiate the change of mindset?
So we now give the floor to our experts. As you feel ready to answer the question, feel free to catch it.
The micro is on, but you have to keep it.
Yeah, please do.
Ms. Felican, please, yes.
Please kindly just keep your microphone a little bit higher up.
Okay? Yeah.
Every time you need some support, just let us know and we will help you.
So inclusion is a mindset. I don't know if I really agree as a mindset. It needs to be a competence, but it needs to be an openness to this. And in fact, it's not just nice to have. It is because it is a need. We are living in times where heterogeneity in the classrooms, it's so complex that we cannot address it without having this openness and inquiry. What am I aiming at? How can I get support? How can I get the best for this child to progress in his learning journey? Who can help me? What are the competencies? What are my resources? So all this mindset should shift to address the existing needs that there are in the classrooms. Some regions maybe are more confronted with children having different home languages. Some children may be, for instance, being more exposed to anxiety, stress. It may be urban areas, lack of spaces. So, but all this can be are overlapping. So, no matter what the needs, if there is a flexible system, it is the right way to go. And for instance, last week I was visiting a Belgian school in Brussels from the Flemish community. And the school had, so it was a pre-primary and primary school. And the school head was so open to the way he was explaining his school approaches. He was so open and so convinced of the value of community, because his school was confronted with very low socioeconomic background, very low, for instance, more than 50% of the mothers were not having a secondary degree. 80% of the kids were speaking a different language at school. So this approach of whole school approach, whole system approach, even if once he did not mention it, the philosophy was there. I tried to do the best for my child, and what his strengths were: a community involving parents, but very important, teacher cooperation and teacher involvement, diversity, voices of the teacher. He was even saying, you know, my school is never confronted with a lack of teachers. So yeah, I think this is part of it.
If I may, a big and is it on?
Yeah.
I have one tip for teachers, and what we have done in Latvia. We introduced social emotional learning course in all levels of pre-service teacher education, and we start what is. I am leading these courses, and I know what is taught then. And one thing is to change teachers' not attitude, maybe mindset, that teacher is not an external expert. Thanks to God, I have graduated from school, and I know I come and I will teach you and I will assess you. But teacher is very, very important part of whole process, and it is necessary to be aware of our thinking mistakes, of our values, because sometimes when we project on children that this children is this and that, just our values have been challenged. And it is important to be aware, because teacher not implements something. Teacher embodies all methods. And I think it is very important to build teachers' awareness on that.
Would you add something also? No, because thank you very much. Your contribution leads me to the second group of questions addressing teachers' needs. So the questions are, in your opinion, what are the key challenges faced by teachers while implementing inclusive education? Is it more effective to integrate inclusive pedagogies into initial teachers' training, or have separate teacher professional learning courses on inclusion? Which way of learning gets a better buy from teachers? What measures for teachers' support are foreseen in the Union of Skills initiative?
We have, just one word, we have strong evidence that teachers who implement well-being strategies and social emotional learning, they also gain from this process. It is not just as additional burden for a teacher, but it is like integral part of everyday teaching practices, and teachers 100% gain from this process.
No, thank you for the question. So on teacher profession, it's really an important one and a very urgent one, because we know in many how acute the teacher shortages is. The challenges are many, linked to the aging of the profession, unattractiveness, not enough support. But coming back to your question on should inclusion be part for all teachers, my belief is that yes, absolutely, because as I said, it's a matter of mindset, how you deal with problems that maybe in 5 years they will be different, or population which are very so it's a matter of flexibility, adaptability, how where to ask for resources, how to cooperate with others. So all these competencies should already be embedded in the initial teacher education and training. And if we look at teacher well-being and stress, this is also one of the main factors of stress, that they do not feel ready and prepared to face with the challenges in the classrooms. And here we are also speaking about disruptive behavior. So it is a profession that, in fact, it's changing, it's evolving very, very fast. They need to be adapted. Also, the digital technologies that impact the profession it's an important factor. But also, coming back to socio-emotional education, it is crucial for teacher profession. And if we look at the profession as compared to others, it is even more important, because you look at your own socio-emotional well-being, but your personal well-being impacts that of your learners. And if your well-being is not okay, then how can you help your learners progress in their learnings? We also know how teachers are how relationship between teachers and academic achievements of their learners are symbiotic. But of course, teachers, what they need support. They not only need competencies, but they need to support. So here, mentoring, co-teaching, peer exchanges, are professional learning communities are very important, and they need a leadership, a culture of school leadership, which supports them. So these are the.
You mentioned very, very important aspect that teachers' professional self-esteem should be decoupled from learners' learning outcomes. It is important, and it is teachers' individual work to be aware and not to put those things together, but also it is systems level responsibility, not to push on teachers too much to that every child must be very, very high level achievements.
Would you like that? So maybe yes, I can add something from the OECD's perspective. Before working on the survey on social and emotional skills, I worked for many years on the survey to teachers and school leaders. And one of the most important needs reported by teachers when we asked them in terms of professional development needs was teaching a multicultural classroom. And then I think I remember the descriptive statistic for France. Like I think it was 34% of teachers in France saying this is the main challenge. So they need, and they lack a sense of preparedness when they start teaching. So at the end of their initial teacher education, clearly, but they also report high needs in terms of continuous professional development. And usually when they start being trained as when they are in service, they want more. So there is also a virtuous cycle by which whereby teachers who get trained need more training. So this is something that never stops. And so to answer the question about where to integrate inclusive education training for teachers, I would say knowledge needs to be constant updating. So it's not either or, it's probably both. And yeah, so I'll stop here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those answers. We just would like to remind you that you can ask the questions also using this opportunity to ask them personally. So we have the microphones ready. We have the interpretation ready. You can ask your questions in English, Polish, or in Polish Sign Language. The questions in Polish or Polish Sign Language will be interpreted into Polish and then respectively into English. Do I see any hands raised? Yes.
So feel free to ask your questions in Polish. No barriers today, for sure.
My name is Alicja Pacewicz. I have been working in the field of education for 45 years, and I have heard those words for 45 years. I love it, and I speak this language, but I have this impression that we are somehow, we have to leave this sort of educational utopia we are all creating, because we are here in the group which is really for many years, sometimes people for some years, have been trying to change the highlight of education. And this is something that has to happen. We have in Poland, and not only in Poland, a very good whole school approach to high academic achievement, very strongly rooted, very difficult to change. So we really need a sort of a revolution, in parentheses, but I think it's we also need your European experience and claims, because we really, the teachers are not really very often, and the parents especially, are not ready to change the mindset. And changing the mindset is something that is really needed now. So I'm very happy that we already have some data, that we have some strong arguments, and because we are now starting in Poland the educational reform, we need this sort of support. So I'm very happy that Poland will be part of it, and I will approach you later because we are trying to think how to change this mindset effectively within a year or two, which is undoable. So keep fingers crossed for Polish school reform. Thank you.
Comment. Thank you very much. But I know that we have next person to ask the question here in the first row.
Just let me check it. 1, 2, 3. Is it working?
Raz, dwa, trzy.
Okay, here you are.
So my name is Mateusz Majkot and I can speak English, but to being precisely understood, I will speak in Polish. So my question is, ponieważ my jako Unia Europejska, jako ci, którym zależy na włączaniu inkluzywnym, na inkluzywnym świecie, robimy bardzo dużo, żeby ten świat tworzyć. Natomiast ja bardzo za to dziękuję. Natomiast mam wrażenie, że o tym, co my robimy, nie wie zwykły Kowalski. O tym, co robi Unia Europejska, nie wie dzisiaj zwykły Kowalski, zwykły Schmidt czy inny obywatel Europy. Natomiast ci, którzy dzisiaj rozwalają Unię Europejską od środka, chcą ją rozwalić, podzielić, bardzo pokazują ludziom, jak Unia im niby szkodzi, jak Unia im przeszkadza. W związku z czym moje pytanie jest głównie do pani z Unii Europejskiej, ale jeżeli inni speakerzy chcą, to też poproszę o głos. Co państwo robicie? Jak państwo pokazujecie, że to, co państwo żeście wypracowali w badaniach, robi realną korzyść ludziom, że jest korzystne dla zwykłego Polaka, zwykłego Niemca, zwykłego Bułgara, bo jeżeli my nie zaczniemy tego robić i nie zaczniemy wydawać masy pieniędzy na to, żeby promować nasze dobre rozwiązania wśród zwykłych ludzi, pokazując im korzyści, oni z nami wygrają. Wygrają ci, którym dzisiaj zależy na podziale. Dziękuję bardzo.
So let's hear now the translation.
So we, as the European Union, we do a lot of things to promote the inclusive education and to build the inclusive world. And we know how to change a lot of things. But an average Kowalski, Schmidt, or Smith, they do not know what you are doing. So that's why people who are now against the European Union, they need to see what the European Union is doing in order to present them that this is very beneficial, the actions that you undertake on the European level, that this is very positive, and that an average Pole, Bulgarian, German, that they know the benefits of the actions that you are doing.
Please feel free to answer.
Yes, I think we have had like several questions about how to shift mindsets. The only thing I can say and encourage you to do is go show the data to the people who are working in classrooms, who are living in classrooms and in schools. Show them the thing. Like, I think that the advantage of having this data is that we have now like objective information that we can rely on and we can start a conversation. So that's the role, providing the diagnosis, and then let them decide. So what do we do now that we see these gaps, now that we see the challenges? What do we do? This is what some of the sites that participated in the survey on social emotional skills did. We had Sintra in Portugal, and thanks also to the support of a foundation, Gulbenkian Foundation there, they went back to schools and they worked out like school plans. What do we do with the results? And then they also like supported initiatives all through the country. And I'm talking under the control of João Costa, who was minister back then. And that was fantastic. I think it created a mindset shift. So I would only encourage you to do the same.
Would you like to add anything?
A responsibility at our level to change the mindset. Each of us, especially that we are so concerned by these issues of inclusion education, how to make it happen. We have a responsibility, and we are ambassadors to take the word further and implement it at the school level. Erasmus Plus, it's a fantastic tool to share this experience, and every school that participate in Erasmus should also further disseminate to peers. But again, it's a mindset of changing the way and not have schools in isolation, to break the walls around the schools and really work in partnership, be it at local level, regional, national, international, and so on.
And also, this awareness is necessary, is that inclusion is a never-ending story. Inclusion is not an outcome. Inclusion is a process. And maybe process and outcome simultaneously, but anyways, it's part of process is very important. So we cannot just ask or request from other, what have you done, and where is gorgeous solutions. We just need to proceed with our work, and maybe sometimes this is the answer.
Thank you very much. We have still a few minutes, so we are looking for another question, and I can see hand raised. So
and
here's the microphone.
Yes.
Here you are, and we are listening.
Thank you very much. I have a question to the panel with this methodological. You pretty base a lot of your results on self-reporting. How reliable is that? Because, for instance, if we do self-reporting, it's not very reliable if there's no trust between us and the respondents. And to make it even worse, my favorite example is during COVID time, there was a Polish big research body going on, taking place. And what they found is that 33% of all Polish kids did something else during online teaching. I can assure you it was more like 100 in real time. So the question is, how reliable is self-reporting, and how much of a policy can we base on self-reporting? Thank you.
Thank you. Very important question. So when we developed the conceptual framework and the assessment framework for the survey, we reviewed a lot of research, and we found that there is a lot of convergence between direct assessment and assessment based on self-reports, which gave us like comfort that this was possible to do. In the first round of the survey, we also asked teachers to score students' social emotional skills, and also parents to score the skills of their children. And the measures were quite convergent, so that was reassuring. We want to move towards the direction of direct assessment. So this is why we are introducing for the first time the direct assessment of empathy. I would say that, just to go into the details of the methodological aspects, that some skills are better measured by self-reports than others. And for instance, the skill of creativity, people are not as good as judging their own creativity than their sociability or their empathy. So I would just add this note of caution that we are aware of these limitations, and represent them as self-reports. And I think that even if you consider them that, okay, maybe let's challenge this as our self-reports, it still tells you that students from a disadvantaged background, they rate themselves lower than students who are advantaged. So maybe there is a part of truth and a part of self-confidence, but you need to address that because this is how they perceive themselves. So probably both are in play in most cases, but they need to be taken seriously even though there are self-reports. So we can continue this outside of...
Thank you very much for your answer. As we've approached the coffee break, we'll now give this time back to you for the networking, for a moment to breathe in and to also discuss all those important topics with everyone else on the floor at the coffee break. So we will see you in 30 minutes time here in this very room for the second panel of the day. So please kindly join us after the coffee break.
So see you after the coffee break and have a nice spur time. Welcome back. It's great to see you again. Before we move forward, I would like to thank you once again for your participation during the Q&A session. It was really great. Thank you for your questions. Big thanks for all the valuable answers. And believe me, we have a great feedback. Really good.
Yeah, and the great news is that we will also have the Q&A session after this panel discussion. So we will be counting on your attendance in the question and answer part as well.
That's correct.
So it's now our honor to invite the next panelists to the stage. So now we will have on the stage Bogdan Cristescu, Secretary of State, Ministry of Education, Romania. Please kindly join us. Claire Bay from French Ministry of National Education and Youth. And Elżbieta Neroy, Director of Inclusive Education Department, Ministry of National Education of Poland.
We are honored to welcome first Mr. Bogdan Cristescu, the Secretary of State from Romania, who will share his expertise on inclusive policies and their impact on educational strategies and establishments.
So we give the stage over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for your attention. I hope my voice will bear with me all throughout the presentation. I was trying to reach several points in my presentation. First of them is the approach that Romania took in inclusion. Of course, it's legislative and normative approaches, but in order to make inclusion happen, there is a lot to do in order to reach school level and students level, because this is what is important. Another topic, because my presentation will be, let's say, quite loud, with a lot of information, but I hope it will be at your disposal after, and easier to know, to see some information and reach out and ask for details if necessary. And after that, I will speak a little bit about the way we are the way that education in Romania is inclusive with Roma children, and the steps we are taking in some projects in order to ensure a safe and supportive environment in schools. The idea is, in the beginning, the norms. We have a new law in pre-university education adopted in 2023, and it supports quality inclusive education for our children by applying the principle of inclusion and ensuring the framework and conditions for achieving educational goals, to develop adaptive behaviors, because this is what is important in 21st century, developing cognitive skills, building positive relationships, ensuring well-being, and focusing on the needs and the individual characteristics of each child. The law pays special attention to children at risk of marginalization and exclusion or a low educational achievement, and we have to admit that in Romania, Roma children are often at risk of stigmatization, discrimination, segregation, school dropout, and failure caused by socioeconomic status or coming from vulnerable communities, and with special education needs sometimes. And these Roma children benefit from educational support measures, and it's important to see them at people of children at the risk of educational exclusion or social exclusion. So the priority is given to early intervention for educational integration, adaptation of the teaching, learning, assessment process, psychopedagogical support, social and cultural integration in the school environment, educational and vocational guidance, because this is very, very important, school mediation, prevention of risky behavior, and priority access to extracurricular activities organized by extracurricular educational units, pre-university educational units, and partners. The Ministry of Education and Research implements various social support programs like school supplies. That means providing each year a set of school supplies for each class at the beginning of the school year. euro 200, that means providing financial support for the computers, for the purchase of computers. Healthy meal, providing preschool and school children with a hot meal or a food package during the school day. And this is in place now for almost 1 million students of 3 million in Romania, less than 3 million, 2.8 million. Social vouchers, that means providing financial support for disadvantaged children to purchase school materials and clothes for school and kindergarten. These programs support the participation of vulnerable peoples in education, as material deprivation is known as being a structural factor that may contribute to segregation or exclusion of peoples from school in general. As I told you, vulnerable Roma students are among the main beneficiaries of school support programs that are implemented by our ministry, because in order to improve school progress and result, Roma peoples at risk of dropping out of the school or early school leaving are prioritized in participation in these programs. And there is programs like School After School, which is complementary to school curriculum and includes educational activities to strengthen, remediate, or upgrade people's skills, and other activities to support the right to education, including recreational or leisure activities. And the remedial learning program is targeted at peoples with learning difficulties or who are behind in their learning. Via the NRRP, we introduced a national program for reducing school dropout because the numbers are quite high in Romania, and it's been implemented since 2022 and support participation in primary and lower secondary education, and the budget is more than €1.5 billion, and it takes into consideration the individual needs of beneficiaries, because we aim to prioritize tailored measures for each school environment and for each school. For that, there are grants up to 300,000 euros for schools at high and medium risk of school dropout. And the activities that are funded are to identify and monitor people at risk of dropping out, pedagogical and support activities to enable adaptation and best meet people's needs, remedial learning activities, and especially because in the 2.5 years of intervention, we saw that the best results we get were from special support activities. That means school counseling and guidance, and often psychological and special therapies, and activities to promote as normal a positive and inclusive environment. Including preventing and combating stigmatization, labeling, discrimination, segregation, and school violence, and dangerous behavior. The law bans school segregation in the pre-university system to all levels, at all levels on criteria such as ethnicity, disability or SEN, socioeconomic status of families, membership to a disadvantaged group, residential background, or educational attainment for the primary beneficiary of education. In this area, in December 2023, was established the National Commission for School Desegregation, which is an expert body under the Ministry of Education and Research, with responsibilities in monitoring and combating school segregation at national level. And in order to operationalize this measure, it was put in place a procedure for a random distribution of preschool children, students in study groups, which was approved in 2024. Sorry. Okay, so we implemented a methodology for monitoring, evaluating, identifying, preventing, and combating school segregation in the pre-university education. And the development of this methodology was based on extensive work, including the development and piloting the methodology for monitoring school segregation in the pre-university education adopted in 2019. And we developed this methodology with the technical assistance of UNICEF, with the funding from the European Commission through DG Reform. And the main thing and the important part of this methodology is that it tackles on 5 levels. As I told you, all types of possible segregation. And once again, on those 5 criteria, it tackles school level, school building level, classroom level, and even the last 2 rows in the classroom, because very often children in risk were sitting in the back of the classroom. Further than that, we implemented another TSI project, which is supporting for enhancing the equity of education system in Romania, because we started with the fact that in the last years, data about segregation of Roma children was growing up. In 2019, I'm sorry, I don't think I have a pointer. No, in 2015, the data was that the Roma children receiving education in classrooms where all or most students were Roma was 26%. In 2017, the percentage increased to 29%, and in 2022, the 8% reached an alarming 51%. But it must be said that the European Commission Agency for Fundamental Rights, it's a household survey measuring perceptions of respondents. And we realized that we don't have data on school segregation at national level. And because we didn't have those data, we developed a comprehensive framework for monitoring, preventing, and reducing school segregation on those 5 protected criteria. I talk too much? Okay, I think it's quite okay. So we developed this methodology, which has a component on monitoring school segregation along the 5 protected criteria I mentioned, which is regulated as an annual process, which sets the stages of the monitoring process and regulates the calendar for monitoring, and includes the indicator framework to be followed for all protected criteria. It has a component on prevention of the school segregation and a set of measures that can be implemented to prevent school segregation. It has a component on the case management in the situation a school unit has scores above the alert threshold. And 2 other components, one of them an institutional setup for school desegregation from the level of the school unit to the central level of the Ministry of Education and Research, and the set of duties and obligation of the various entities across the education system, along with sanctions in case of non-compliance. And the most important, in my opinion, is the component on the initial and continuous training for an effective and sustainable school desegregation. It introduced the learning resources for school desegregation, monitoring in the identifying and evaluating school desegregation, a set of data, indicators, and scores. As I told you, prevention of school segregation and intervention in cases of school segregation. And in the national system of informatics school management data we have a special module on school desegregation. And since this module is in the whole IT system that is managing the school system, is very, very important that we can put together data on different levels and on different information, not only segregation, also educational results and so on. As I told you, yeah, I talk too much. It's a sign. So we have actual data on school segregation instead of perception-based data. And the module that I told you in the SIR, in the Romanian Management Informatics System, generates automatically 3 types of monitoring reports: at school unit level, at county level, and at national level, with which allows targeted intervention in real time. third time is the charm, I think. Okay. Another TSI project funded by European Commission through DG Reform is policies and resources for safe and supportive schools. And we started with the national context at the moment. That means preventing mental health issues among lower secondary school students, improving social and emotional skills, educating children in the spirit of protecting their physical and emotional integrity, and the teachers are entrusted with ensuring the well-being of students and responding to the needs and particularities of each child. Once again, there is a lack of evidence regarding the ability of the educational professionals to incorporate social and emotional learning into teaching and classroom management, something that was said several times yesterday and today, including promoting the healthy use of technology, the internet and social media as part of curricular and extracurricular activities. We tried to, once again, I put at your disposal the presentation, and the available data on children and youth mental health and well-being in Romania show that 22,000 children and adolescents in Romania are living with a diagnosis of mental illness, and many others face various development difficulties, emotional or cognitive difficulties. That includes conduct disorders, attention deficit and hyperactivity disorders, anxiety disorders, autism spectrum disorders, depressive episodes, attachment disorders, school phobia, eating disorders, and so on. So we will, through this project, we will have a comprehensive analysis focused on student social and emotional skills and the capacity of educational professionals to incorporate CEL in the teaching practices. We will assess EU good practices in promoting well-being at school, and we will have a peer-to-peer exchange. And after that, we will develop and pilot tools for fostering a whole school approach to well-being. That means guidelines for incorporating CEL in teaching and classroom management, guidelines to promote healthy and use of technology, and guidelines to develop positive and safe classroom and school climates attitudes. We will have a referral protocol for identifying, assessing, and referring students in need of specialized psychological support. And we will develop a capacity building program on well-being at schools. That means practical tools and resources for promoting the well-being in schools, including school supports and for teachers. We will pilot the elements of the program, and we will scale up this program at national level. The other things that we tackle, and it's in our intention, is to grow up the participation in early childhood education. And in the moment, there are a lot of things that are funded through the national resilience and recovery plans, and not only building daycare centers and to equip them, and improving the training of teachers, and it's important to know that on Roma inclusion, we did several things. We introduced school mediators. We campaigned to inform and attract Roma children. We stimulated the participation of Roma children in kindergartens. We organized annual intensive summer courses in Romanian language and teaching methodology for teachers and potential teachers for Romani language. And once again, but I will eventually answer to your question, or I will leave it at you, at your disposal. You have in my presentation, which will be available for you, a lot of things that we introduced about the Roma children education and how Romani mother tongue is taught in Romania, in how many counties children are can study mother tongue or can study everything in their language, in their mother tongue, and these are the main data for that. I'm at your disposal for comments, and probably during the presentation of my colleagues, I will get a little bit of my voice back. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this inspirational presentation. Now we have the privilege to give the stage over to Claire Bay, the head of the Health and Social Action Office from the Ministry of National Education and Youth, Republic of France, who will provide us with the insights on how inclusive education, with an emphasis on emotional well-being and empathy skills, can be effectively implemented in a diverse educational settings.
So, Ms. Bay, the floor is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me to present the French policy in favor of well-being in schools, particularly the health-promoting school approach. My name is Claire Bay. I'm the head of the Health and Social Action Office at the General Directorate of School Education from Ministry of National Education in France. I'm responsible for developing and implementing policies related to health, well-being, and child protection. I will now present our efforts to promote well-being in French schools over the years, and I will detail some of the highlights of our policy, such as the health-promoting school approach and our measures to promote mental health and the introduction of empathy courses in primary schools. First of all, I would like to tell you about the changing role of well-being in French education policies. In 5 years, we have moved very quickly on this issue. French educational culture has always focused on the acquisition of knowledge. When we were training to become teachers, we were told that we were working with pupils and not children, and their personal problems were to remain outside the classroom, but it's obviously not that simple. With the advent of the COVID crisis, the mental health of children and adolescents has deteriorated significantly and remains at worrying levels in France. So France's national education system took up the issue in 2020 and introduced a real paradigm shift, the main stages of which I will outline below. In 2020, the Ministry of National Education officially developed the health-promoting school approach. And in 2021, a mental health and psychiatry summit was organized. It brought together many ministries and health actors. This eventually led to the drafting of a strategy to the development of psychosocial skills for children and young people, and I will tell you later more about it. In 2022, for the first time, well-being is a ministerial priority with excellence in academic achievement. It is written in the Back to School circular that is a very important document for teachers and supervisory staff, setting out the main priorities for the years ahead. Then 3 measures in favor of mental health were announced. I will come back to this later also. In 2023, for the second time, well-being was highlighted as a priority in the Back to School circular, and this is still the case for the 2024 school year. Next, as part of a national plan to combat bullying in schools, empathy sessions were piloted in over 1,200 schools between January and June 2024. And these sessions were rolled out to all primary schools at the start of 2024 school year. And finally, psychosocial skills have been incorporated into the subject curricula, and they are currently training teachers to help them develop their own psychosocial skills and teach them how to develop their students. Okay. So the health-promoting school approach is based on the World Health Organization's definition of health as a state of completely physical, mental, and social well-being, and it's not merely the absence of illness. This approach considers health as in a holistic way, not through a biomedical lens. It therefore involves all members of the educational team, teachers and supervisors and so on, and not just the health personnel. We'll still need to advocate for this, as the approach is not yet fully understood and embraced by everyone. It is a systemic approach that aims to move from a collection of isolated actions to a more coherent framework. This goal for empower our students to take control of their health and their environment, and which requires mobilizing the entire educational community. School principals play a crucial role. They must learn to consider the health and well-being implications of all their decisions. For example, when designing a class schedule, they must think about the child's life rhythm. We have shifted paradigms, and we no longer start with risk prevention, but we prefer to promote health positive habits. Health promotion offers a positive view of health, of its construction through the life, and it's important to consider it as a resource to be developed. It is more attractive to children and adolescents than an approach based solely on the prevention of potential risks. For example, it's preferable for students to approach health through physical activity and a balanced diet rather than preventing obesity. And for example, our addiction prevention policy has long been based on information of the risks of drug use, like, smoking can kill you, drinking alcohol is dangerous for your health. And these are injective and negative messages that don't work with teenagers. So for some years now, we have preferring programs to develop psychosocial skills, such as Unplugged or Good Behavior Game, for examples. These programs have been helped to reduce alcohol, tobacco, and cannabis consumption, like it was shown in an UNCLAS survey. The child is considered in his or her school context, taking into account the interaction between his and her particularities and his or her environment. It is therefore important to link actions aimed at individuals and those aimed at collectively to think about the environment in order to better meet individual needs. This approach of health promoting school is built on the connection between good health and academic success. Here are the measures we have developed to promote the well-being and mental health of our students. Indeed, a comparison with the pre-pandemic data suggests that young people's mental health difficulties in France have doubled for depressive symptoms and anxiety disorders, and hospital visits for suicide attempts amongst girls aged from 13 to 15 have nearly tripled. We have therefore announced the inclusion of the suicide prevention telephone number in pupils' diaries. We have created a mental health protocol to be completed in all schools. We have trained 2 teachers in all middle schools in mental health first aid. It is a course that we have created. And we have drawn up a roadmap for the development of psychosocial skills, including the empathy sessions. So here's a photo of our protocol, which is why the slide is in French, I'm sorry. This protocol aims to encourage all members of the educational community to feel involved and to take action in favor of well-being and mental health. Everyone's roles is set out in the protocol with due respect for each person's expertise. The scheme is based on 5 roles: identifying, alerting, assessing, referring to care staff out of school, and following up to support the pupils. teachers are in charge to spot the signs, and health staff assesses the situation and refer for treatment. We have also trained 2 mental health first aiders in each middle school to better spot the sign and learn to welcome speech and practice empathetic listening. These first aiders, they are teachers or supervisors, not health personnels. Here is the outline of our protocol, which is supplemented by a guide to be completed by the educational teams. In the middle and secondary schools in France, we have teachers, we have school life teams who take care of students when they're not in the classrooms, and teams of social and health personnel. We have doctors, nurses, psychologists, and social assistants. Only the nurse is present every day in school. As I said earlier, in August 2022, a multi-sectoral strategy was signed by the Ministry of National Education and the Ministry of Health. Its aim is to develop the life skills of children and young people. In France, we have chosen to speak of psychosocial skills and not socio-emotional skills to put more emphasis on cognitive skills. This strategy is exceptional for 2 reasons. It involves 9 different ministries, which is a lot, and it is set to unfold over 15 years, whereas other strategies are usually planned for 5 years. This is a generational goal. The aim is for the 2037 generation to be the first to have grown up in an environment with well-developed psychosocial skills. So it brings together all the sectors involved in children's life: school time, extracurricular time, leisure time, and family time. So we have chosen to develop 4 areas with a systemic approach: the institutional framework with the publication of a roadmap, school programs including psychosocial skills, for instance. Second one, the management, with the creation of specialists in each region and a meeting body in each department to direct implementation. Third, the training of teachers, and especially this year we have trained 1,000 trainers and 40 trainers of trainers, and we are also training supervisors. And 4, resources such as our website and our book called The Empathy Kit, which offers sessions for the class and also serves for self-training for teachers. 1,200 schools participated in this experiment, whereas initially we were only looking for 100 schools. This shows the strong interest shown by staff in school. They were sensitive to the advocacy we did to show that developing psychosocial skills enables pupils to feel better and to learn better. First, we published a resource, the Empathy Kit. Then we trained the volunteer teams through a webinar, and then they set up the sessions for 6 months. And at the end, we evaluated the experiment, and in the fall of 2024, we generalized it in all schools, primary schools. We have developed a whole policy based on principles to explain what it means to develop psychosocial skills in schools. We have theorized that there are 2 complementary ways of acting: developing psychosocial skills with a view to well-being, which can be done by health staff, and developing psychosocial skills to support learning, which must be done only by teachers. This is a highly educational activity. Psychosocial skills are no longer just used in the classroom, but they become a subject of learning, and they are studied as a part of subject sessions. They also enable us to develop high-quality educational relationships. So this is the the Minister's Kit method that is ready to use, a ready-to-use resource that can be used directly without any prior training as part of professional practices that have already been mastered. It seems new, but it's not so new. And sessions are ready to use, but they can be adapted by teachers. Its session focuses of the development of one psychosocial skills, and it is preceded by explanations of what this skill means and the benefits of developing it in class. With this experimentation, we developed 3 different assessments. First one, the monitoring of school climate indicators such as physical violence, verbal abuse, bullying, and non-compliance with consent. Second assessment, a qualitative study with focus groups. And third one, a study with our scientific council on the measurement of students' level of empathy. The following are the results of these assessments. The teachers really appreciated the empathy sessions and the kit. They all wanted to continue after the experiment, but they explained they needed time to train. So this is why this year, to support the spread of empathy courses in all schools, we started training inspectors and developed a new training format. And we trained, as I said earlier, 1,000 trainers between January and June. And from September onwards, they will be able to train teachers in all departments of schools, secondary schools and high schools. Teachers have reported numerous positive effects on learning conditions, the classroom climate, students' well-being, and the quality of their relationships with students and other teachers. The project has been a really rallying point for the teams. In the schools that held 1 session a week, the school climate indicators did not change, but it is already a success because at the same time, everywhere else in France, these indicators deteriorated. But with several sessions a week, the indicators of violence improved in all schools. Okay, thank you for your attention. Here are some resources that you can check out on our website. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bay, for your presentation. And finally, it is our great pleasure to give the floor to Ms. Elżbieta Neroy, Director of the Department of Inclusive Education, the Ministry of National Education of Poland. Ms. Elżbieta Neroy will discuss local initiatives and policy frameworks that support inclusive education.
Please take the stage.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? I hope. I'm honored to present the Ministry of National Education efforts to create peer support networks in schools. I'm substitute of the Minister Paulina Piechna-Więckiewicz, plenipotentiary of the Minister of Education for Mental Health for Learners, who couldn't attend the conference, but she sends her warm regards for everyone. So the initiative, we are talking about building support networks for learners, responds to the rise in mental health challenges among students, particularly after the COVID-19 pandemic. Our goal is to strengthen student well-being through peer support, alongside improved health education and better access to psychological services in our preschools and schools. You already know, because it was mentioned in the presentation of Madam Minister Joanna Mucha, but we have prepared the training program for specialists in our schools and preschools in cooperation with the Educational Research Institute and UNICEF, called Accessible School for All. And Regina today told about this project as well. So we investing in the staff competence to equip them with the skills and knowledge necessary to support students. There are, of course, many other activities from our ministry to support the mental health and well-being, which were mentioned in the presentation of Madam Minister on the first day. And you have more information on the Padlet about the projects because we were present them during the workshop sessions. But let's come back to the building support network. It complements the existing provision in the educational system. João Costa spoke about the value of this support in his speech yesterday. As we know from research, peer support networks are very, very effective. What do young people who benefit from the support of their peers gain? A sense of belonging, an acceptance, new coping strategies, concrete help in solving problems, and they learn to rely on themselves, so they gain confidence in their own abilities. They are less likely to suffer from depression and anxiety, improve their academic performance, and reduce school stress. It helps to prevent substance abuse and reinforces healthy habits. But the question is, what do peer volunteers who provide this support gain? They boost self-confidence, develop social and cognitive skills, learn to regulate their emotions, and having these skills of resilience, they prepare for adult life. So we believe that building support networks for learners based on school peer volunteering is a classic example of a win-win situation in which both parties gain. And this is our proposal to present to you today as a tool of prevention of mental health and well-being problems. Okay, there was the context of this project. Now let's go to the project. Project Peer Support for Adolescent Mental Health was initiated by the Polish Ministry of National Education and is led by the Foundation for Development of the Education System as a leader in the partnership with other organizations, Foundation, Institute of Positive Education, and of course with us, with Ministry of National Education. This program focuses on mental health support and suicide prevention in secondary schools. Key elements include training school coordinators to identify and respond to mental health issues. And the other key element is teaching students to recognize when peers need help and how to respond in an adequate and helpful manner. The project started in August last year and will be finalized by November 2028 with a budget of 9.78 million euros from European funds. The project will develop peer support networks in secondary schools, and through close cooperation with psychologists and teachers, we aim to improve the school environment and students' well-being, increase trust between students and teachers. We know that it's so important, this relationship between teachers and students. And we would like to establish best practices for students. Best, we mean quality, effective practices for students' mental health support in every secondary school. Main outcomes of the project are social innovation, which means introducing a developed and tested method of peer support into a systemic implementation in secondary school. Creation a peer social support network will encompass both the learners and teachers communities. Our aim is to have at least 200 secondary schools involved in the pilot project and implementation of the peer support method by over 300 school professionals, including, of course, psychologists and teachers, pedagogues. As a part of the project, learners will also have access to an application for monitoring and reporting problematic situations, which will enable quick responses in the event of a crisis. We know that learners often see earlier the problems of their peers than we as adults, teachers or parents could. So that's why it's so important for us to implement this method in our school, as I said, more as a prevention, but intervention as well method. The method was developed based on both international and national experiences and is based on research. The trial phase will assess its impact on crisis prevention and suicide risk reduction. Students and staff will be trained to recognize signs of distress and refer peers to trusted professionals. What I would like to highlight, that not to act as counselors or therapists or problem-solving persons, just to connect those in need with appropriate help. That's why the school network must be connected very well with the specialist provision in the local community. The main phases of the project implementation are method development. We are on this phase of implementation of the project. So the project started with research on peer support methods, expert consultation, collaboration with international institutions, and at the end of this phase, a structured methodology, training materials, and an evaluation framework would be created. The second phase is testing and implementation. So selected schools will participate in pilot testing where school coordinators, as I mentioned before, the mostly psychologists, and trained learners provide peer support. The phase will include training, mentoring, networking, continuous evaluation, and of course supervision and coaching for the staff. The last phase is final recommendations, development and integration into the systemic solutions. So based on the pilot outcomes, the approach will be refined and guidelines for broader implementation will be developed. The next step will be policy amendments to establish peer support as a standard approach in Polish schools. The project will develop two key products: a manual for schools for the peer support method and report with recommendations on the implementation of this method. And this project is based on the findings and solutions piloted in the smaller one, which is implemented by, mentioned before, the Foundation Institute for Positive Education. The project name is ACT, Talk, Volunteering for Peer Support in the Mental Health of Learners. And this project is implemented on behalf of the Ministry of National Education from 2023, and it will be finished this year. And it's carried out under the National Health Program. And through this initiative, we aim to harness the power of young people supporting each other, ensuring they feel heard, valued, and empowered. We saw yesterday, we saw the video today. We know that there is energy and power in young people, and it's part of our efforts to move from the thinking about support as in some kind of medical approach, so thinking that support is when adult person solve the problems of young person, but to better think that we can, by empowering students, empowering young people, we provide good preparation for adult life and for solving problems by themselves. A strong peer support system benefits everyone, and we know it from research. So students, teachers, parents, and the entire school community, even the local community. So the success of this initiative depends on collaboration between learners, educators, parents, and the wider local community. When students, parents, and educators and the staff from other sectors as well work together, we foster a safe, inclusive, and mentally healthy learning environment. And we believe when learners feel safe and respected, they are most likely to succeed both academically and personally. And this is our aim. So every learner and every child matters. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for this presentation. For the discussion part that we are now opening, we would like to invite to the stage Mr. João Costa, the Director of the European Agency for Special Needs, who will be also answering your questions. And once again, we remind you that we have the opportunity to ask the questions in Polish, in the Polish Sign Language, or in English. And now we will start with the questions from the room, and we will then move on to the Padlet questions.
So we are looking for your questions. It's a great opportunity to consult with the experts.
We are ready with the microphone, so just please kindly raise your hand, and we have the first question over here.
Thank you. So I have a question regarding the Romanian legal system. It was included in your presentation that the law on pre-university education provides for random distribution of pupils. So could you please somehow explain how it works in practice, please?
I hope you can hear me. So yes, there is a procedure in place because we realized that in some schools, in remote areas, a lot of children from disadvantaged background, Roma especially, were put in the same place, in the same classroom. And the other ones were with better results in other classrooms. So we have a random distribution, for instance, alphabetical order, 1 in first, 2 in the second classroom, and so on. So all the times there is this distribution, random distribution, and after that, via our methodology, we evaluate if all the indicators are met and the distribution in classrooms is, let's say, balanced. Okay?
Thank you very much. Do we have other questions from the room, from the opposite side? So let's take the microphone.
Ja mam pytanie po polsku. Fundacja Szkoła z Klasą. My od kilku lat wprowadzamy projekty dotyczące odporności psychicznej Ja bardzo się cieszę, że padło to dzisiaj i nie tylko dzisiaj, że musimy mieć evidence, musimy mieć dane, które popierają to, co robimy. I bardzo się cieszę, że padły wszystkie takie głosy dotyczące tego, żeby nie tworzyć tylko ogólnych polityk, tylko konkretne rozwiązania. W szkole z klasą przechodzimy przez diagnozę każdej szkoły, poprzez małe, codzienne praktyki, które nauczyciele wspólnie z refleksją mentorów, przy wsparciu mentorów przechodzą do projektów społecznych robionych bezpośrednio przez uczniów. I teraz moje pytanie, mam dwa pytania, jedno do francuskiej delegatki, a drugie do polskiej. Pytanie do Francji jest takie, w jaki sposób wy dbacie o to, żeby sprawdzać, czy wyniki badań się zmieniają i jak to wprowadzacie z powrotem do systemu? A pytanie do polskiej reprezentantki. Ja wiem, że eBay ministerstwo robi bardzo dużo projektów, które są wdrożone. I skąd pomysł, żeby dzisiaj mówić o projekcie, który się dopiero zaczyna? On jest bardzo ambitny, no ale jesteśmy jeszcze w fazie dopiero testowej.
Myślę, że może w tym momencie pozwólmy odpowiedzieć polskiej ekspertce, żebyśmy potem mogli całość przetłumaczyć na język angielski.
Maybe I will translate anyway.
Yes,
the
we are ready to
question.
hear the translation.
Please do.
So firstly, the question to the Polish representative, and the question concerns the idea of presenting a project which is in the very preliminary phase. But on the other hand, the Institute for Educational Research and other institutions, they also have many other projects that are being implemented or have been implemented already.
I'm sorry. I won't run from the questions, but I do have a plane to catch. Let me thank you for your attention and our host for a great invitation. I'm sorry, but if I understood correctly, two things were, one of them were from France and the other one was for Poland. So yeah, I can I can take the, okay. So thank you very, very much. And I'm sorry for running away, but I will come back gladly. And my email address is on the slides. So I am at your disposal. Thank you very, very much for that.
Thank you very much for being with us and have a safe flight home.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bogdan Cristescu, the Secretary of State from Romania.
I don't know to answer in Polish or English. What would be? English, yes? Okay. So thank you for this question. So we decided to present this project because we presented during the conference many other projects and results of our works. In the previous day, there were 9 thematic sessions. On each session, they were presented Polish examples as well. So we took the opportunity to share with our colleagues from all over the Europe our works. And we would like to add, to talk about, to highlight the missing element of these results. But we are talking about the supplementing the system, support system, by very important element to include learners. So that's why, and this is an open invitation for all of you to see what work was done until the second phase will start, and to maybe join and share your experience as well, because we are looking for other solutions in this area, and we would like to highlight, having in mind that we would like to empower young people and we would like to have them being involved. So that's why we decided to present and to talk, but we are not only have those projects you have already know, but we have started another one very important for us.
Thank you very much for this answer. Now let's give the broader area for the question and translation for the French.
So the expert from France, asked by the expert from the Foundation Szkoła z Klasą, which is a school of good quality. So I'm very happy that today we talked about psychological resilience. and that we have data and surveys to confirm that what you do is right and there are good things for the students. And we, in our foundation, we also have projects within the framework of which we make diagnosis of schools, teachers, they have access to mentors, and then pupils, they are implementing civic education projects. And the question to you is what to do to check if the data have changed and how to implement the change in practice.
We have regular surveys that we implement to check regularly the data. So mainly about mental health, the en-class survey that I told you about. So I think this is what we do to change practices. It's, I think, the more important. It's been already told earlier. I think we all know what to do, but it's complicated to make teachers and supervisors really change very ancient practices. So I think the first step is the policy and the fact that we have to share these data, as Naomi said earlier. But in France, we have an experiment. It's with the technical support instrument about mental health, and it's about this: how to change practicals. And so we have 3 territories in France, and because all the I think the policies are just right, quite right, but we don't really see changes in schools, and this is the thing we want to reach with this experiment in 3 territories. So it's about training teachers, all the educative community, and it is also sharing data with them, and it is also doing with them. You know, we go to schools and we see how to change practices with them, with residence trainings.
So let's see whether we have any further questions from the room.
Are there any questions in the room? If not yet, maybe let's check if there are any questions on Padlet.
So again, over to Director Anna Atwas and the expert of the Ministry of Education, Magdalena Olejniczak-Mackay.
Thank you very much. New questions arrived via Padlet. So the large group of questions is being addressed to the topic mental health and peer support project. How to motivate teachers for additional engagement or obligations of being supervisors or guides for mental health? What are the systemic solutions in France, Poland, and Romania to reduce the fear of principals against introducing new models of mental health care at schools? How to take parents and the whole school community on board for this? Principals and teachers are often under pressure, and their mental health is not in the good shape. How France, Poland, and Romania measure and support mental health of teachers and principals?
I think this time we will give the floor to Mr. Costa.
Yeah, as Peter was asking me to share some thoughts on those questions because they are very general, and and this leads me to share with you some notes that I was taking this morning, the whole morning during the session. To be honest, only this morning I knew that I was coming on stage again, which made it very nice, because I can say things that I have not prepared. And this is what inclusive education is about. We have to do things that we were not prepared for. I couldn't even find my notebook, so I grabbed my name tag from the chair to take my notes. And that's what inclusive education is about. It's about our skills of adaptation. So let me maybe share with you 4 very brief notes that address these questions. The first one is really very general, and it's directed to the Secretary of State to once again thank you and congratulate you for these 2 days. It's really important what Poland has done in putting inclusive education so high in the agenda. And you're very lucky to have this Department of Inclusive Education and Elzbieta as director. I wish all governments had a Department of Inclusive Education and someone like Elzbieta directing it with her vision and action. My second and third notes relate to these questions. And I said it's in one of the parallel sessions yesterday, and I will say it again. I like to make comparisons between what we do in education and what is done in other areas of our lives, of our societal lives. And when we read some of the documentation that is now coming from the European Commission, and I was reading, for instance, the Union of Skills document, which is really important, we read a lot about competition, competitiveness. And then our mind jumps into the world of sports. I'm one of those people that knows nothing about football. I know zero. But there's one thing I know, is that we are not competitive if we do not cooperate. And this is also true for education. We cannot think that we'll have a more competitive Europe if a big share of the population is left behind. So there's no way Europe is going to achieve its goals in terms of competitiveness if this agenda is not very, very high. The other thing, and this is the comparison I made yesterday, and it relates with the questions that were posed. I'm very excited after this 2-day conference, but we may leave the room with a bit of a sense of frustration if we don't get practical, or if we keep talking about goodwill and motivation. And I really think we have to set our minds on this. We are not just talking about people who are in the mood for being inclusive. This cannot be about being in the mood. This has to be about professionalism. And that's the comparison I made yesterday, and I'd like to make again with the health department. Let's compare a practitioner in education with a practitioner in health. Suppose I'm very ill. I'm a serious case and an odd case. And I go to the hospital, and I have a surgeon who says, I'm not really motivated for this case. Please take your time to work on my motivation. We do not tolerate this. We do not accept this. And education is not different. It's actually more urgent. And so we have to set our minds to think a bit like people think in the health department. There is preparedness. It's crucial. So we have to rethink preparedness. But preparedness is about techniques. It's about knowing what to do, being practical. But we also need to think of practices. And there were many, many practices shared during these 2 days. What I really think we have to do after this conference is to go home and think at international organization levels like the European agents or UNICEF or the European Commission, how we make sure that these practices reach the practitioners. We are very good at making documents. We are not so good at making sure that the teachers and the technicians work with these documents. But also we heard a lot about evidence. And what we heard in these two projects here, and also by the Bogdan, the Romanian Secretary of State, is something very new, is that we are more and more working on evidence and on theory of action, going from a dream to a pilot, to instruments for measure, to assessment, to recurrent assessment, so that we can go back to the data. And this is different. Someone talked today about what we were doing 45 years ago. I was 7-year-old, so I know what I was doing. But this is different from what we were doing 45 years ago. We were not using research evidence, research methods the way we are using them now. And this is what people do in medicine. They work on evidence and they study. So we have to keep studying, and we have to talk, and all our practitioners have to be researchers. But also we need to know, and again, this relates to these questions, that we have to be open to the unexpected. And today we are, in many of our countries, we are celebrating an awkward anniversary. 5 years ago, we were closing everything. And we proved to ourselves that we were able to act on the completely unknown. We were able to buy masks. We were able to develop vaccination. We were able to develop new ways to circulate in the buildings because we had a sense of emergency. And inclusive education is about this sense of emergency. We sometimes feel the pressure of parents. Parents are not ready to wait for the system to be ready. They want a response to their children today. And the more we have this sense of emergency, the more we act on today. My final note is, and this again relates to these questions, is from principles to practices. We in this room, I would say maybe 98% of us agree on the principles, on the values. And again, I relate a lot to this intervention in the previous panel, say, but weren't we discussing this 45 years ago? Isn't it time to go from utopia to something more practical? I hesitate in answering to this question because, first, because we are living times of dystopia, so the best reaction is to keep a bit utopic, to react to the dystopic time that we are living. But I also see this with optimism. Yes, we are discussing some of the same principles, but 45 years ago, we were discussing access. In most of our countries, there was a big share of the population that didn't even access to school. Now we are talking about success, how to make sure that everyone learns. But again, what this means is that we have to go, now the part I relate to is that we have to go home and think of single legislative frameworks. I mentioned this yesterday. This is about curriculum. This is about not having a response for disability in one department, a response for immigration in another department, a response for the gifted ones in another department, a response for those that we didn't talk about during these 2 days. For instance, we didn't talk about gender, but we know that girls do not have access to STEAM careers in the same way that boys do. We know that homosexual boys are victims of bullying in ways that heterosexual boys are not in their schools. And if we put all these in silos, we don't have integrated responses. We have to think of assessment. We cannot keep saying that an inclusive curriculum is at odds with standardized assessment. We have to reconcile these two worlds. We have to think of scalability. We saw many small projects that work very well on a pilot basis, but we want them to turn into public policies. So we have to think how these things can be scalable. And finally, I would say that we have to think of indicators of quality. If a school is not inclusive, we cannot say that is a good school. And this is a reaction to school rankings that appear in the media on measures or indicators. The countries stop to talk about PISA, but PISA has lots of indicators on equity and diversity that we also have to look at them. Two quotes, also to show that this is not a left or right opposition in our countries. So I will quote a revolutionary and a saint, so that you can think, is a damn leftist revolutionary or is a very right-wing conservative that quotes saints. So I will first look at that. I will first quote Che Guevara when he said, let's be realistic and demand the impossible. But then I will quote St. Francis of Assisi when he said, start by doing what's necessary, then do what is possible, and suddenly you will be doing the impossible. And inclusion is about doing the impossible, and we'll be able to do it. And yes, there are barriers, there are obstacles, but if we take one step at a time, we'll be doing this impossible. This is what we want.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank our keynote speaker for his answer. That was a great answer. Thank you very much. Do not worry, we ran out of time for the questions, but all the questions that have been asked on the tablet, on the Padlet, there will be answered there. So please revisit those areas within the ask and question parts of the tablet to see what is the answer to your question.
And big thanks to our panelists. Thank you, Ms. Bay. Thank you, Ms. Neroy. Thank you, Mr. Costa. Let's give them warm reward with silent applause. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please kindly take your seats in the auditorium as we are getting ready for the final talks,
Yes.
closing remarks, the key outtakes from this very conference, 2 very fruitful and packed days, days of this main stage, but also of the sessions. So we'll be now very happy to hear the official outtakes from those 2 days.
Well, it's been 2 days conference, very valuable, as I believe. And to be honest, the final part is just approaching. And it is an honor again to welcome to the stage the Secretary of State, Minister Joanna Mucha.
So we give the stage over.
It's me again, but good news, it's this is my last speech. And let me begin with expressing my gratitude to my colleagues, especially for Madam Undersecretary Izabela Ziętka, who is not present with us, but who was responsible for all those conference. I must say I take all the credit, but it's hers. So yes, I want to express my gratitude for her. And I also want to express my gratitude to Ms. Director Elżbieta Neroy, who was personally responsible for my deepest gratitude, really, because she was personally involved, responsible for organizing all of those conference. And thank you for the whole, your work and the Department of Inclusive Education also. Please pass the thanks. And I would like to also thank to all the members of Foundation of Development of Education System, because without you we will not be able to manage to organize this conference. Thank you for participants, panelists, reporters, facilitators, volunteers, all the staff who was organizing this conference. I'm very pleased to see that this conference has served as a unique platform for sharing knowledge and fostering collaboration. It focused on driving innovation in education and exploring its broader impact, celebrating diversity, focusing on equity and shaping social change. I hope that what we take with us from this conference is the conviction that inclusive education is not a cost, but an investment that pays off as it prevents many of the challenges that Europe is currently facing. It is an investment in teachers' infrastructure, but above all in the emotional well-being, strong and meaningful social relationship and educational outcomes of children and young people in Europe. Inclusive education is a way to a resilient, well-prepared civil societies throughout Europe. We have common challenges in education, the growing diversity of needs resulting from migration and deteriorating mental condition of children, adolescents, and teachers, the growing number of children with additional support needs, and the appropriate preparation of teachers. Therefore, inclusive education must be about working together and taking responsibility according to the saying that it takes a whole village to raise a child. This is beautiful. I really love this quote. It takes a whole village to raise a child. Cooperation, both on the schools, children, parents line, but also cooperation of specialist teams, and last but not least, intersectional and international cooperation. It'd be very pertinent to state here that inclusive education should incorporate the use of new technologies to take advantage of the opportunities they offer and prevent risk. And we focused on this topic in one of the workshop sessions. Inclusive education should also be data-driven. It is essential to monitor and qualify of program and strategies and respond to emerging needs. What we don't measure, we can't manage and therefore reform. We have been here to engage, inspire, and learn from one another. I hope each of you have found this experience both enriching and fulfilling. Together, let me ensure that education becomes a force for good and founding stone that supports every learner and empowers them to spread their wings and shape our future with confidence and purpose. And now our mission is to make this switch from, let's say, utopia to practice, as Alicja Pacewicz said. So the final conclusion, let's make inclusion happen. Thank you all for all your involvement and enjoy your stay in Poland. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Mucha, for your closing speech. And I would say, yes, we do make inclusion happen. What would you say?
Madam Minister already thanked all the contributors who worked so tirelessly to make this conference happen. Please let me extend those thanks also to our interpreters who are working for those 2 days to make this conference accessible for everyone in every option. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we would like to encourage you to take those discussions out of this conference as well. We are still waiting to meet everyone at the lunchtime. So this is also our networking area, but we hope that you will continue those discussions far beyond this conference, that you will take those those highlights, you will take those thoughts, and you will also take our sketch notes that we are proud to present after the second day So this is again an inspiration for all your discussions today and in the further days, months, years, when you'll be developing your projects for inclusive education.
So thank you for being a part of this great, I think, conference and a part of this journey toward a more inclusive future in education. Thank you very much.
We are so happy that you are with us here in the room and also online. So it's also a goodbye to all those who were with us online. And we hope to see you in the future for the related projects. Thank you.